between them when he does that. And I feel like he's showing that, to me, shows the he's showing the similarities of our souls, I guess.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. That's interesting interpretation.
Yeah, that jumped out at me.
I guess that's always been prevalent if you read a lot of, Japanese comics, and it's not just Japanese, of course, but like they really emphasize close-up shots. It's a good way to show it, to attune our souls to the characters, and to be able to relate to them really closely.
Yeah, but I feel like with this comic, well, I mean, I haven't read that many comics, but I did you notice how he had a lot of close-ups of their eyes? And like he was like the part where the father, Simon Gertie, is getting drunk, and he's kind of being abusive to his family.
Yeah.
And he shows the eyes of the children, and the children's eyes are like wide open, or not necessarily wide open. They're just kind of like, he has this one shot of his child. He's drinking, and the son, he shows the son looking at him with, like, I don't know, it's a like with disdain, or almost like with shame.
Yeah.
So I thought that he showed a lot of depth of character through that.
Yeah, I do think so as well. Actually, sometimes I admit that I got a bit confused, like because there were a few Simons there, or Simon Jr., so I got a bit confused in the process. Like they all look very similar in terms of the character design.
This is a society where the only thing that matters are adult males. Women and children are accessories.
Mm-hmm. Although I think when they were living out there, everyone had a really important part to play in terms of survival, right? Don't you think? I mean, everyone had to pull their own weight to make sure they would make it.
This was a society where the machine hadn't really come into play, and it was a world that was built around having muscular strength and being a body that could lift heavy objects and so on, and blah, blah, blah. And women generally cannot compete in that one. Until the machine age really came along, women were at a disadvantage.
Kind of reminds me of the Spartans, actually. Yeah, they're brave warriors. Wow. But I haven't studied the Spartans that extensively, though, so I can't really say. But although as it was emphasized, they were very much just very muscular, and melee fighting were very much emphasized. It was important for them to gain survival. Yeah.
Well, okay, we certainly can go through it if anybody wants to.
Yeah.
You don't have to.
Let's do it. Yeah, I'd love that.
Okay, if we settle back, let's see. All right, Wilderness, The True Story of Simon Gertie, the Renegade, by Tim Truman. Well, I hadn't actually read this before, but I selected it because I wanted to take a look at it. I think we should all agree the major draw here is, for goodness sake, the artwork. Timothy Truman. I mean, what what can you say against him? I mean, he's
it's
just
not
gonna.
in color.
I mean, he's a guy with talent dripping from his fingers. I mean, and just incredible that this is all pen and ink. I mean, the man sat
Yeah.
down and drew this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love black and white drawings personally.
So it's just to be, to take a deep dive and be immersed in this world of his immaculate drawing. It's just to me, I think that's the main draw here. It usually is with Tim Truman's comics. Yeah, just one of the all-time great realistic. If everybody remembers back when we did The Strange Death of Alex Raymond, where we talked a lot about the realistic, photorealistic drawing style, and I think Tim Truman is definitely in that category. It's just amazing that anybody could do this. I'm not artistic in any way. I can't do anything. It's just amazing to me that anybody can sit down with a pen or pencil and just produce this kind of work. It's just amazing to me.
And that much too.
Yeah. So he not only did the drawing, but of course, he's writing it as well. I mean, he did the research.
Oh.
And this is a one-man show.
Wait, this is the part where like I was just talking about, like, the father is kind of angry and the kid is he's giving him a side glance, like, that's kind of an interesting.
Yeah, I think certainly he has Truman's been around for a long time. He's a veteran. I mean, he knows how to make a close up and how to get get the audience involved in the narrative. Just the panel to panel continuity, how he.
I have a question. Wait, can you scroll up a little bit? Do you?
Oh yeah, that's a brilliant scene where they're moving along. So look at the dad. He's sitting on the horse with his comfort bottle there, and the poor mother and the children are just following behind. They're accessories.
Right. And then down below, okay, do you see there looks to be like a African American looking man over to the far right in that middle frame right there.
Yeah.
See that?
Yeah, looks like it to me.
Okay, so did they have slaves?
Yeah.
I didn't think they would. I didn't think they would be able to. They didn't seem like they had enough money to have slaves, but I noticed that, and I thought that was interesting. You see that?
Well, he might not have been a slave.
Maybe.
But if you're a Negro in the 18th century, you're at the bottom of society. The only thing below Negroes in the 18th century colonies was the Irish.
Is that true? Is that really true?
Yeah, it was.
It's pretty true.
The Negroes were still Protestant, technically. The fact that the Irish were Catholic, you got to remember that the colonies which became the United States were one thing. They were Protestant, and if you were Protestant, you had a place in the world, even if you're on the lowest level. If you weren't Protestant, you were Satan. Quite simple. If you were a pagan Indian, well, there might have been hope for you. We could convert you to the true faith.
Mhm.
But if you were Catholic or anything outside that, that's something outside that, watch out. Don't wander around.
Here's the other thing that you notice how there's a lot of side glances from a lot of these people in these frames. I noticed that there's like the one up there, and then the second one. They're all kind of it's almost like they don't trust each other, even though they're together. In the same, right?
Well, that was demonstrated in the comic, wasn't it? We're friends one day, then something
Yeah.
upsets the apple cart. It's like it was that friend of his he was trying to save from the Indians, and they had a particularly bad defeat from the white men, so they were looking for a white man to torture to death and kill and burn alive. Oh, well, you're in 1 minute and you're out the next.
It
Yeah.
was a brutal world back then. I would have hated it, I know, but
Me too.
I would have loved it.
Oh my
don't.
God.
I don't feel that much better that I'm living in the time I'm living in right at the moment either.
You would
but,
have loved you would have wanted to be one of those guys trying to make it out there. That would have been I would have been scared as hell. I'd be like, let's go back. This is too much.
yeah.
You need to read some Richard Matheson,
Okay.
the incredible shrinking man, I Am
Yeah.
Legends. That there's a part of us, I don't know, there's a part of us that will, we could create the perfect world, but we're a machine built to expand and achieve some type of success, or we start to feel bad about ourselves. So even if we had the perfect world, we're going to look for a conquest.
I guess it was only the strong surviving out there. So,
Mainly luck. Strength helps. If you're not strong enough, your chances are less. But you can get along. A lot of skinny men were the great survivors because they knew their place in society. If you're a skinny, weak man with a bit of talent, you could play a piano, or you could do this. Just keep your head low, and luck would probably see you survive. But don't try and fight it out with the big men.
oh, the scalping really just.
Yeah, he didn't pull any punches in terms of the reality of as far as his research was telling him. Yeah, this is the way it was, as near as he could have determined. I think he was very responsible with his research and trying to make it as accurate as possible. If you read his foreword, where he said, yeah, he was very meticulous, and it's brutal, and yeah, it's hard stuff to swallow if you're kind of squeamish about stuff like that. Sure.
Isn't that interesting that the Fort Pitt, it's shaped like a pentagon, just like the Pentagon in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, that was a method of building forts in the age of when the cannon had arisen. The old style castle would get blown to bits, but this new style fort was built to withstand the siege with the modern weapons of the time.
Well, I guess if one part of the structure gets damaged, then you still have 5 other sides.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they would retreat.
I mean, 4 other sides.
To other bastions if one got taken over.
Are you looking for that Pentagon or?
Yeah, I guess it's a little later, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, okay. It's a little bit after this. It's a little bit after this.
This is a world that Thomas Hobbes would have been proud of.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, nasty, brutish, and short. Yeah, Fort Pitt.
Yeah. And I guess it looks like they're on a peninsula or something. Am I wrong? Or they're right on the coast.
I believe this is Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Then they're on the coast, right?
On the Ohio River.
They'd be on the Ohio River, yeah.
Oh, okay, right. That's Pittsburgh is not on the coast. That's true.
Yeah, because Fort Pitt eventually, in time, is now what is now Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
So I've already indicated one of the active spirits in this world, one of the grand spooks in this world is the Protestant religion. And that was your team colour.
Yeah, anti-Catholicism lasted for quite some time. I mean, none of us here, I think, are, well, actually, Stephen, you are, but back when JFK, John F. Kennedy, was elected, I mean, that was a major issue. You know, a Catholic as a president. It was a huge deal at the time. It was like a major thing. A Catholic president? What?
Do you
The
think,
universe just isn't built that way.
And he was the only one we had until right now. Yeah, we only now have a second Catholic president with Biden.
do you think this author, I mean, the author depicts the white, the white guys is a little more uncivilized in a way? Like, I mean, look at how he draws the all of the native people look very regal and put together, and he has these drawings of like Simon Gerty and his gang, like completely disheveled and stuff. Do you think there's some bias there, or?
Maybe, you never know.
Well, you got to remember that your Neolithic native probably has a bit of time on their hands, and a lot of that time will be involved in preening, because looking good has always been important in most cultures except ours. We're in a culture where the objects around us, our machines, our mega structures are towering over us, and we're looking shabbier by the minute. That was the thing I noticed when I watched the film 2001. That was Kubrick's prediction. The machines were beautiful, but the humans were looking pretty dull.
That's funny. Well, also, I mean, isn't there some, I mean, okay, when you're writing about a group of people who are ultimately kind of lost, you don't, I mean, to sort of even things out, you want to kind of make them look, I don't know, you want to kind of like, you know what I mean? They do this in television too, like with they make fun of a lot of well, nowadays, like it's, they make fun of the white males, and like for women and minorities, well, some minorities, they totally do not like respect in the media, but like with women, they don't make fun of them the way that male characters can be made fun of. You know what I'm saying? Like they kind of, Stephen gets it. Stephen, can you explain what I'm saying? I think you could explain that better than I.
Yeah, well, this is a funny thing, and this is where I disagree with rationalism. Rationalism believes that you can create some of perfectly crystallized goodness, and I just don't see it. I see we live with biases. And we can probably identify there's a bias, there's an A at one end and there's a Z at the other. And what's happening is an indication of that we're reversing the old principles. Once white male Anglo-Saxon Protestant was the god, and then they talked about equality, and they've mistaken equality for reverse racism. No, it isn't. And that's just how stupid people are. This is why this comic is about it too. The human animal is the
like
most dangerous animal around.
Yeah.
Watch.
Oh, you froze. Stephen froze.
Probably the
Oh, okay,
connection
there's-
is not too good.
Buffer.
Like, doesn't,
My internet connection is unstable.
well, I think we heard most of what you said, but like you can see right here, like these, so to the left, you know, they kind of look a little bit dumb, and to the right, you have a little more decorum. But I understand what you're saying. I like how you said people confuse equality with anti-racism. That's a good one. But
Yeah, if you ever really get into studying history, it's just, yeah, you're right. It's a lot of bloodshed. It's a lot of warfare and endless bloodshed. That's the history of mankind. Of course it is.
yeah, and I do agree. I think that for some reason, boys tend to love that stuff. I did not like that stuff.
Oh yeah, if you're going to study history, you're going to have to toughen up and to get through it, because otherwise, yeah, it'll just overwhelm you. Just, oh my gosh. And it's kind of the way I've always felt about it. Sure.
Actually, this is exactly how I'm feeling. The more I've studied history, the more pessimistic I'm getting. You know, as a kid, you know, I was growing up in 1960s Australia, you know, we're on top of the world, you know, we had, you know, growing economy, you know, there was welfare was growing, everything looked good, and you thought it was going to go on forever, but it doesn't. Eventually, the world is now catching up with our peace.
Yeah, well, we've had plenty of conversations about the world and where things are and how we all feel about it. Carolyn, you're new here, but we certainly have gone over. Yeah, there was a time in my life where, yeah, I was saying, it seems to me that we're going in the right direction, but over the last, and it wasn't even, you know, not even Trump. I think in the last 7, 8, 9 years, we've taken a huge U-turn, I think, from where I think we should be going.
Or is it just a necessary hump before we somehow?
Well, it'd be nice to be optimistic. It sure would be.
You're being a Hegelian, Caroline. You're following in the footsteps of the grand philosopher Hegel, who believed that progress, he could be right, but progress would win out. There'd be a few hiccups along the way, but humanity would progress to the grand plateau. Of course, us pessimists, we're out there, you know, waving our flags for the doom.
Well, I mean, I do feel like it does seem like any time in history when we've had people have overcome injustice, there had to be some kind of war. I mean, if not like a literal war, like basically a war. And there's like a process, and people have to, like, you know, take sides, and then there has to be pain, and there has to be suffering before people go, okay, wait a minute, let's do something smarter.
I'm afraid that ultimately I don't share your faith.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, the older I get, the more difficult it is to be optimistic. But
here's some horrible history. The prolonged torture and execution of Colonel William Crawford, which occurs in the comic, and they don't go in. The comic doesn't actually go into the grisly details of his execution. For those with a bloodlust.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's hard when you watch a movie that's supposed to be historical because you know it's never going to be accurate. You know it's never going to be exactly the way things were at the time. But you know, I mean, it depends on the intention of the creators, how accurate they're going to make things.
Please.
So I don't know. I mean, you know, I don't know if like discussing how, you know, effective it is as a comic is even anywhere towards the point of this. I think really the main selling point is the history lesson and being immersed in this world. Yeah, to me, it seems like it's a little bit, you know, more of a lecture than a dramatization, because if it were a full dramatization, this would be very, very long. I mean, if we'd have to go on for like, you know, 20 issues to get all the information across. And I don't think he had the stamina for that. But still, it's a good example of how you can get across a historical biography in a comic, I think.
You know, Caroline, are you still there?
I'm here. Yep. Can
Oh,
you
yeah.
see me?
I think
I
we're just good at finding distractions, you know, throughout. Well, yeah, certainly we don't engage in battles and bloodshed anymore, but with machines, I feel like in a way we're submissive to that and we're enslaved by that, you know. And we see it as a form, you know, we sort of think like they're subordinate to us, but oftentimes we are actually the ones that are subordinate to them. That's what I perceive. And I feel like that's a very it's a
Two
it's a
machines.
Yeah, well, just, you know, technology. Sorry?
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah. That's what I
a
believe.
very significant idea. The machinations of the world, how subject we are to not just the literal machine, but even the mechanisms of politics.
So
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
I'm reading that link that you posted. So I didn't get this far in the comic, unfortunately. I was really busy this whole
Oh.
week. But
Oh, we can stop here then.
oh no, that's okay. Then no, don't worry about it. But it says in this link, it says that so the colonel that was being tortured, he turned to Simon Gertie and begged him to shoot him. But it says Gertie made no answer, and he said by way of derision, told the colonel he had no gun. At the same time, turning to an Indian who was behind him, laughed heartily. Did he talk about that in the comic?
Yeah, well, no, he doesn't. He doesn't go into why Gertie is behaving like that. But Gertie is trying to keep face with his allies, the Indians. Even if he doesn't like what's going on, he has two choices. It's Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna has two choices. Neither of them he likes. But you're going to have to pick one. This is what I warn people about. When things become extreme, there isn't going to be a nice little ice cream shop you can go to and sit down and scoop your ice cream. You're going to have two tragic choices, and you're going to have to make one of them. And Girty had to show the Indians that he wasn't a pussy. He had to demonstrate to them, because at the end of the day, he was white. And unless he was out there proving he was a friend of the Indians, his life was in danger. His existence was in danger. But I think the comic does point out there was actually an Indian chief who was pure white man. He'd been captured as a kid and had risen through the ranks to become, chief of an Indian tribe. I forget the name there, but yeah, it's mentioned in the comic.
I think I did get to that point.
June, I think, is that what it's called? Injun, or is that the Indian tribe? I don't know.
What was he called? Blue Jacket?
Let me see if I
The
can find
Indians
it.
called him Blue Jacket. I think his family was massacred, but the Indians kept him as a kid and he was wearing a blue jacket or something, so they called him Blue Jacket. Now, this is a fascinating element you'll discover in history. Why were they taking certain types of prisoners? Who were they targeting in the age range? Look at the age range of the people they were taking who were tended to be successfully incorporated into an alien culture.
Young people. Oh, you mean
Yeah.
as prisoners or to raise?
Yeah, well, this is the thing. That this is something. This is a. You find this in the Vikings when they were attacking Ireland and Britain in the Irish Sea, and there's an Irish monk pointing out that most of these Vikings were Irish boys that had been captured and either used as manual slaves, but the strongest of them were raised to be Viking warriors because the Vikings were very few in number. They needed the numbers. So whose choice? Who are you going, if you need manpower, who are you going to incorporate? You're not going to incorporate a 6-month-old baby. That's 10, 15 years of feeding and raising a child. But if you get the horse when it's, 10, 12 years old, 15, you've got somebody that's survived all the childhood diseases, somebody that was 10 or 15 years of feeding, you've instantly got a valuable piece of property, and a person's still young enough to be brainwashed into your social structure.
Mm-hmm.
This is the harsh reality that pessimists like me just love.
What's your comment about that relating to this comic, or
Well,
relating?
this is the thing. The Indians were suffering a numbers problem. Now, you could breed like mad and spend 15 years raising a child to manhood, which is nice, but it's a huge expenditure in what was expensive to them, food and time. But if you capture a 13-year-old, you've got somebody who's survived all the childhood diseases and is ready to be incorporated in, very soon to be incorporated into the adult world and do the work of the adult world. So the Indians were like anybody anywhere who's suffering from a numbers problem will steal the children of the other tribe to raise them as their own because they need the numbers.
I mean, when you're talking about this, I feel like, well, that's kind of like, so North Korea has kidnapped a few people from Japan, and I guess They were there. I think they were young, mostly younger people, like you're talking about.
I don't know if that's part of the numbers game, but there would be an element there. There's a meaning, there's a significance to what they're doing there.
Mhm.
There is perhaps a social experiment, you know, basically maybe they're experimenting to see how easy it is to take a foreigner and incorporate them into the godlike North Korean communist ideology, which after all, if I was in North Korea at the top of the party, I am the master race. All other mankind, including the bloody Chinese, will bow at me and say, I am the God. I have the perfect ideology. North Korea are the greatest people on the planet Earth. Stop smiling, David.
Well,
It's
anyway,
spirit.
I guess I feel like they kidnap people partially to learn things about the other culture, you know, Japan or whatever culture they kidnap people from, but also to indoctrinate them. And so, I mean, maybe, although I mean, I didn't really get the sense that the native people were trying to indoctrinate people. I mean, was that a common thing? I don't know how. I've heard of many stories of them taking in white people and raising them, but you don't really hear much of the other way around, I guess. I don't think, but
Well, the white man was coming in numbers and he was hungry for land. There's a place called Europe which had an oversupply of population at the time, and you know, getting that little piece of land of your own, you know, otherwise, you know, you're in a situation, if you're working for the other man, it's not, well, it's generally hasn't been such a great place. There's been better times and worse times. We've lived through one of the better times where working for the other man was pretty okay, but generally it's a bad situation. So they were out for that little piece of land where they could just, you know, practice their subsistence living as a base for their own existence. It's capitalism. Getting that little piece of property, you know, your little slice of heaven, and not having somebody else tell you what to do. When you got a piece of land in the 18th century, and this had been true since the Dark Ages and before, you were a somebody. These were societies where you owned a piece of land, you counted. You didn't have land, you're a nobody. You're just a landless labourer working for the man.
mm-hmm.
But you couldn't even vote originally unless you owned a certain amount of land.
You couldn't even, what did you say?
There wasn't universal suffrage originally. I don't know when exactly it
so-
started in the United States, but to vote in England up to a certain point, you had to have a property qualification. You were a male and you qualified with the amount of property you own. I think it eventually came down just to owning your own little house, but you had to own a piece of land to vote. And today's society in the West is a demonstration of the disaster that happens when you extend the franchise to people that don't own anything. They will vote for public handouts until the state is bankrupted. I know it sounds harsh.
Wait, who are you talking about?
I'm talking about today's society, that when they extended the vote to everybody, they kept on saying, oh, that's a good thing. That's goodness. That's marvelous. when you give the votes to the people at the bottom of the pile, watch out. And this is in Greek philosophy. I think, who was it? Aristotle was warning us on this one, wasn't he? About, extending the vote to the people at the bottom of society, because they will vote for anybody who stands up and says, I will give you handouts. And they will keep on heading in that direction until the state collapses from bankruptcy. I'm saying something that people don't want to hear.
I guess I'm a little, well, yeah. So you're in favor of not letting people at the bottom vote?
Yeah, in a sense, yeah, you might say we'll eventually end up there and we'll have a new type of hierarchy that's replaced the old hierarchy. In the new style hierarchy, you'll make sure that power is preserved by the top. I know it sounds harsh. We've lived through a halcyon age.
Well,
The post-war.
Who's gonna be at the bottom next?
The drones.
Well,
of
that's
society.
okay. Oh, I thought you meant machines. It's okay if the machines are at the bottom. Wouldn't
Oh, no,
that be a good substitute? Make the machines
one of the cheapest machines in the world is the human body. Very sophisticated, yeah, and you can buy one for a song.
So you're saying that we will always have some form of class system where there's people at the bottom, and wouldn't it be nice though if we did make the machines at the bottom? Wouldn't that solve some problems here?
I think eventually, I think this was a point demonstrated in Blazing Saddles, wasn't it, David? Remember Blazing Saddles? Remember when they'd seen the two black guys off to check out the rail up ahead, and they give them, the rail car. So, they're pumping the rail car along, and they end up in a quicksand. And the white cowboys come along, and they go, "Oh, darn and tarnation, that rail car was brand new." So they manage to haul out the rail car, and they leave the two African Americans in the quicksand.
What is
Blazing Saddles, Mel Brooks.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah, well, it's a situation where the machine, in certain situations, machines will be considered more valuable than the drones at the bottom.
Available? What did you say? Available? They would be considered.
The machines would be considered more valuable than the drones. The drones are the people at the bottom.
Viable? I'm sorry.
Valuable.
Available?
Valuable. Value, price, cost, expensive.
Oh, valuable. Okay, got it. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I couldn't hear or understand. Okay, so the machines are more valuable than the people.
In certain circumstances, yes.